Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the audio systems engineer for Ed Sheeran. I'm here in charge of putting up our Maya sound system. We're carrying a large stock of Leo sound speakers. So our main hang arrays are 18 Leo. We've got the same on the side hangs. We're also using the 1100 LFC subwoofers. We've got 9 of those flown per side on our stage. And in addition, there are 12 more 1100 LFCs per side on the ground. You can see it's set up as a NFAR array with a spacing that gives us a really nice wide cardioid pattern, hopefully getting audio coverage sort of smoothly to the widest seats and to the center of the stage. We have a selection of outfill speakers, UPA there, also 16 LINA as used as front fills. We're using them in pairs here and using them as our front fills and outfills. And then for the delays in our stadium setup, we are currently touring 4 towers, delay towers, and each tower has 14 Milo cabinets to cover the far end of the stadium. As you can see, we've got a full set of Galaxy processing on the far side there. We're running 4 Galaxy processors per side. These are fed from a signal from our Optocore X6Rs. We're taking AES from front of house down the fiber returns, and then Optocore will convert it back into AES signal, which feeds our Galaxy processors. So these are covering all of the EQ, phase alignment, and time alignment for the whole system. They're currently being connected by our Optocore fiber network to take AES audio in and distribute AES audio to all of our Galaxy processors. We have a set of processing on stage left and stage right, and then also additional processors at every single delay position. The use of fiber throughout the venue means that obviously it's a reliable, redundant optical loop. So should the worst case happen and we have some damaged cables, we've got an immediate backup that seamlessly swaps over. And also, obviously, transmitting all the audio over AES, we're suffering from as minimal signal degradation as we can. These are all fed on multi-pin W1 straight up to our PA hangs above us. So we're running one speaker per processing channel, which allows us to have maximum control of the arrays. So we're using a SIM3 audio analyzer tool. So I'm using this with the DPA microphones to analyze the room, sort of adjust for delay times, correct for any venue-specific EQ, as well as also being able to adjust for any array correction due to the number of boxes in each speaker hang. And this integrates with all the Galaxy processors over the SIM3 network bus. So I've got direct control of our speaker feeds from within SIM, as well as all the audio analysis. Quite a nice integrated system. We've been using Digico consoles pretty much from the beginning of when Ed started touring, or certainly as soon as they had some budget to be able to bring a console. Chris, our front of house engineer, started touring an SD11.
So Ed's on stage setup, 2 900 Maya LFC subs, 2 MJF 212s, 2 custom jump boxes, go over the wedges so we can jump on top of them, and some sub kickers so the subs aim up the stage and to his head. Apart from IEMs, that's his whole stage setup, and this comes together and creates a nice big riser for him with the pedal in the middle and all the subs. That's about it.
The subs are pretty key, as so much of the timing and nuances of how he builds the loops comes from the rhythm, and he sort of really feels that on stage by having those 900 subs nearby, that he can keep the timing accurate. He now uses an in-ear monitoring system. We're using Sennheiser 2000 series IEMs. And since we moved over to that, the wedge level has dropped significantly. We're primarily monitoring using the IEMs, but the wedge is really there just for a bit of feel and a bit of confidence, and in the event that there was a failure of some sort, then we've still got some redundancy built into our system.
So this is Ed's Looper system, which is a parallel redundant system, which is fully custom written in a VST plugin called Chewie. So everything is completely digital system. It's fully synced, so we have our 9000 RF system here, which takes all of the inputs from all his guitars, vocal mics, loop mics, spare mics, all in one unit there, which is 8 channels. That is then digitally transported, obviously, through the air, comes through to the rack here, gets transported over to front of house via the Digico SD rack there, where Chris, our front of house engineer, mixing everything. It then returns through to me, which then feeds the Looper system. We've got 2 systems here which are fed and synced identically, so if there's any problems we can switch between Unit A and Unit B. This little pedal here is a duplicate of what happens with Ed's pedal on stage. So every button press he makes is duplicated here, both visually and via LED. So we can see which channels he's selecting, how he's recording, playing when he's starting and stopping loops, when he's overdubing, and also if we get any issues that arrive. We can also see that he's muting and unmuting tracks as he likes through the set, and make sure that everything's working and being fed through to the VST plugin, which is hosted in Ableton. If there are any problems during the set, we have an AB switch here, all on optical MADI, which is fully synced. So if one machine goes down, starts to stutter, loses connection or anything, just hit one button here, and the rest of the units in the rack via MIDI, GPI, and every sort of switching protocol you can know, triggers all the audio switching and also the master-slave priority that happens within the VST plugin. So this whole system is set up in one rack. We've got all of the I/O for the console, we've got all of the RF, both the input from the 9000 and the output through the 2000 IEMs. This also houses all the mains distribution for his wedges and subs on stage. Everything is contained in one rack, as well as includes all the RF coordination we do via WSM, as well as wireless workbench. And this also controls our wireless comms, which we use to coordinate the entire show. So it's really a one-stop shop, one rack does our entire backline on-stage audio. So this is Ed's Chewie pedal, which is the remote control for the system that we saw over there. You can see he's got the record play, which starts and stops the setting point on the loop, where it starts to loop. You can stop and play, so he does quite a lot of single beat drops. The undo, each channel has an unlimited amount of undos on there, so if he does a loop on a specific channel that doesn't work or slightly wrong, then you can select the channel, hit undo, undo the last loop, and you can keep undoing until that track is clean again. Our mode button here changes from record arm, so selecting which channel he wants to record onto, into actually mute for each of the different channels, so he can mute specific channels to be able to build and drop down the verses and choruses. The bank button here will actually slide all these channels over and give us another 4 channels, so it's an 8-channel looper. And yeah, it's a working stage, there's things happening all the time. And the clear button here will obviously, once we press that, everything's wiped and gone. So you get 2 nice big screens on here, which is a waveform of whatever's been recorded on the selected channel, and then a 4-channel VU meter to show the information that's happening at the volume it's happening on that channel. We've also got on the side here a modified TU3 pedal. The standard TU3 pedal would obviously take an analog signal in and pass it out, and when you hit the button in, it mutes the signal. Now, because we are a 100% digital system, Ed wanted a tuner on stage. He really likes TU3s, he's always used them. But the problem is you can't pass the digital signal out and through this. And we didn't want to add this into the chain to then convert from digital to analog to digital again, and add 60 foot, 120 foot of analog cable on stage. So what we've actually done in the back of here is stripped out half of the circuitry and put a tone generator in here with a separate switch. So it still takes an analog input, which is split off from the board, but as soon as you press that button, it sends a tone out of here back into the console, which then triggers gates and duckers, which basically take Ed's guitar out the front of house mix, routes it through to the tuner, And then when you press the button again, the tone drops, it routes back to front of house. So there is no conversion process. This isn't in the signal chain, it's just a branch off of it. So we found little things like that throughout the process that we wanted to make everything 100% digital, but obviously we need analog elements. So we tried to make them outputs rather than throughputs. That's the way it works. So yeah, some little engineering funkiness has happened, which is fantastic, but the problem is there's only 2 of these in the world that's been built. So when one breaks, you have to get the toolkit out and the soldering iron out, capacitors, resistors, and remember your circuitry training.
I'm Rob Simpson and I'm front of house for Jamie Lawson on the Ed Sheeran European tour. I am using an Allen Heath dLive S3000 with a DM48 rack on stage. We've got a dLive S5000 with a DM48 rack for monitors. This is the smallest of the S series range. 1 screen as opposed to 2 screens, designed to be the smallest possible footprint I can get, so I'm not in the way of these guys. Both consoles are connected on a network, so and this is a separate computer. I run a Mac Mini, give me the extra screen, and also it's a completely independent system, so I can see both monitor consoles and front of house console for here. So if necessary, I can actually hop on to the monitor console for here. For if any reason a surface went down or we had issues, which so far we haven't, but it's capable both ways. We can both hop onto each other's system. Me and Mark, the monitor engineer. So I've got a Waves card here, which I no longer use external Waves effects just because the effects are great. I don't kind of need. The only reason I had it was for dynamic EQs originally, but when the console originally came out, it didn't have the capabilities that it does now. So now I use onboard dynamic EQ. So I'm now no longer using the Waves stuff at all, just for recording and for virtual sound checks. It's got some really cool built-in compressors that got lots of options. Which we have a library, so they're modelled on the kind of classic compressors, the 160s and the original 160s, which is quite cool. And also something I used a bit back with the Wave system was the 1176, which has now got that on board as well. You now have basically 64 dynamic EQs and multiband compressors, so you can insert them wherever you want, which is amazing. You never run out of that kind of power. I use both multiband and dynamic EQ, but mostly the multiband compressor on my left-right bus, because I can just leave that and see exactly what's happening. It's very fast. There's no kind of lag between the two. Also, if you want a RTA, or I can also have an iPad, so you can have a bunch of connections that don't interfere with each other, and so I can go for a walk if I want to. Not that I'm doing that, because later on this lid comes off and it's actually kind of a good mixed position really. So the Opto compressor is fantastic. Always use that on Jamie's vocal. Jamie has I wouldn't say a challenging vocal, but very kind of lots of harmonics, so lots of 200 and 500, very dynamic and kind of proximity. So between again, this is fantastic, the dynamic EQ and those compressors in conjunction with that. And I also run it into a group and have another dynamic EQ, because the compressor adds quite a nice kind of top end, but it's almost sometimes a bit too extreme. So I EQ again after, so it gives me basically 2 stages of EQ, quite a lot of processing on his vocal. Yeah, the effects, the onboard effects, often in a stadium situation is obviously quite challenging with effects, reverbs, etc. You kind of have to go with the space, but you know, when you can hear it, they're probably, again in my opinion, some of the best onboard effects available for most consoles, I would say. For me, this is my first stadium, consistent, doing sort of 50 odd shows in stadiums. I've done big shows along the way, big festivals and stuff like that, but wasn't a kind of everyday thing for me to suddenly find myself actually getting used to being in this situation. So at first, I guess there's levels of stress that you work with it, and again, if you have the right tools, it can just makes it a lot easier.